Obviously, we're here to have a chat about the astronaut. I think I read that this was inspired by some sort of real, to a degree, real life experiences of astronauts. I mean, how did you find out about this phenomenon, and what was it about it that inspired you?
So it was born out of an article about all the real symptoms that astronauts have when they come back from space. And when I saw it, I was really interested in the fact that there were so many that I had never heard of before. This idea of anti-gravitational hallucinations and tinnitus and then as I was going through the process, I interviewed the head of NASA's rehabs sector, and she explained that it's very common for astronauts to hide their symptoms when they come back from space because it is genuinely a real risk that they won't be able to fly again. So I really tried to bake in as many real things as possible. And then really just kind of backtracked the film from there. Finally came up with the twist ending, and then the narrative in a lot of ways really just revealed itself to me from the kind of A and Z of that, and then kind of became this sort of very sweet yet messy story of self-discovery and kind of discovery beyond fear.
And your previous film, you were part of the horror anthology Phobias, and kind of reading the log line for the astronaut, I guess it would have been so easy to go down that horror route. Why did you decide to kind of veer away from that and go into something which is much more kind of a sci-fi psychological drama thriller?
I think I love this idea that the whole movie is kind of a misunderstanding, even the genre itself. It is a horror movie until it's not. And I love the idea that beyond the fear and the unknown is this sort of spectacular technicolor beauty and warmth that is so sort of unexpected from the rest of the film. But I feel like that's often what that looks like in real life when we move from a space of fear to a place of knowing or embracing or getting through a difficult transformation and making it through to the other side. Often we look back on things that we think, oh my God, that had me in such a chokehold and we was such a struggle and I was so scared of this thing. And then just on the other side of it was this amazing experience or life or transformation that I can't imagine not going through, and that really makes everything make sense. So I feel like in some ways it's very relatable, but also sort of unrelatable within the genre because most films would just kind of stick to that same tone the whole way through. So it's definitely a choice and it won't be for everyone, but I hope that people will stay open to something a little bit more tender and a little bit more unexpected at the end.
I mean, speaking of, unexpected, I think so many people, when you say astronaut, they instantly think of a man. But here, Sam is played by Kate Mara, and it's very much a feminine story. There's this whole thing of, her draw to space versus, her role as a mother. What do you think that, by having a female, a female astronaut, female protagonist, what does that add to the piece, do you think?
Hmm. I definitely think, like you said, first and foremost, that conversation of career balance with being a mother is something that every mother I know navigates at some level. And I think oftentimes more so than a father is asked to. And I think that kind of almost sacrifice that sometimes needs to be made in order to continue to fulfill yourself outside of parenthood or just beyond parenthood, and the challenges and the disappointment that that can create for other people, whether that's your partners, your spouse, your family, your child. I think that it's something that so many mothers have to navigate, And I think people who are not parents also, living for the expectations of other people or trying not to disappoint others and sort of living an untruthful life in whatever that means to you is something that I think is so common because often by choosing ourselves, we have to let other people down. And most of us really don't want to do that. And that's what makes it so difficult. But I think, especially as a woman, and like you say, as an astronaut, I love that. I love the actual definition of astronaut. Because I know off the bat it sort of seems like a very generic title, but the actual definition is just one who travels through space. And I just love that idea because that really is who Sam is in this movie. And it is very much a woman's story, but to me, it's also a very universal story. Even her name, I try to give her a gender neutral name so that no matter how you identify, you can still relate to her. And kind of outside of the confines of her sort of earthly labels and responsibilities, she really is just one who travels through space. I sort of liked kind of distilling it down from and sort of what do we all look like once we strip all of the other stuff away.
And this is your feature debut, and you've got Kate Mara and Lawrence Fishburne on set. How daunting, is that, sort of having to, I mean, especially like Lawrence Fishburne, we would have both grown up watching him, and then you're suddenly telling him what to do to a degree.
Yes, it is. It is a crazy. It is an insane job to have the opportunity to have experiences like this. I always have to try to be cool when I meet with these actors and not tell them that I'm like the world's most massive fan, although I usually just tell them. But honestly, both Lawrence and Kate are so gracious, so generous to take a chance on me as a younger filmmaker. Um, and they really were just game. I mean, Kate had basically nothing to act off of, and she just went along for the ride and gave it everything she had. And Lawrence was just so wonderful. He's such a presence, both on set and off. And he's been very much a mentor through the process, and he's a very paternal guy. And he just really made me feel, even when I was saying, I didn't want him to worry because I was technically a first time filmmaker. So, I'm telling him I've worked in the industry for a long time and, I have all this crew experience and I've done this anthology because I don't want him to feel like I'm kind of riding blind. And he's like, oh, it's all good. I've worked with tons of first timers throughout the years. Spike. I was like, okay. So it meant a lot to me that not only did they take a chance on me, but that they flew to Ireland to film and really gave it their all. And we all still hang out all the time. So we've all remained really close. Same with Gabe Luna and Scarlett, our little girl in the film. We met up with her in Austin. It was her whole family's first time in the U.S. For South by, and yeah, we really created a real little family unit that still lives on. So I'm forever grateful for that.
Nice. I guess, like you said, Sam is, she's placed into quarantine. So much of the film is spent with her, primarily on her own in this one house. And, sort of as the film progresses, it almost becomes its own character. I was just wondering, how you found that location and whether it was a case of you had that location in your mind when you were writing, or if you found it later and then kind of had to make some tweaks.
Okay, I love this question. Sometimes there are moments in filmmaking that feel very sort of divinely guided in a weird way. It doesn't always feel like that. I've worked on a ton of movies where that is not the case, but I did feel on this movie in weird ways a lot of times that would happen. So in my deck for my visual lookbook for the film that I had created, I had all of these location photos and I had this really sleek, modern black house in the forest. And so we go to Ireland, which is stunning, but that's not going to be something that you would typically find there. Um, so one of our producers at Wild Atlantic out there sent over this house, and And it was in this stunning location, and couldn't really tell from the photos how it was going to look. And once we went in person, it was so interesting because they had actually already started to paint their walls black, and which was kind of an odd choice out of the context of the film. So we basically asked, can we finish the job for you? And kind of, obviously we did a lot of we did a lot of design, a lot of which they chose to keep afterwards because we definitely kind of gave it this really sophisticated makeover. But the family was so gracious to host us, and it was so spectacular too because the windows are so big, and so you could really feel the exterior even within the house, which is so nice. And it really became our own kind of playground. It was like our own little studio there to be able to kind of go everywhere we wanted, like a back lot, and shoot on all of these kind of different spots on the property. And like you say, really make the landscape a character. And we happened to be shooting during the peak autumn weeks in Ireland, and so it was absolutely beautiful too. The colors are just absolutely spectacular. So I mean, we really lucked out with that location because it genuinely was pretty much exactly what I was hoping for.
Nice. And I guess my final question, why do you hope that audiences take a chance on this film? As you say, it's kind of it's not quite what it looks like on the page. So what do you hope that people take from this film?
Hmm. I hope that people I hope that people relate to the film more than anything. I think I'd love for people to try to look past the genre and try to look past any expectations of what it should be or what it normally would be, and just kind of allow themselves to open up that little bit extra and kind of tap into a little bit of that sense of wonder. And there's definitely a little bit of a wholesome element. I feel like in 2025 there's a billion reasons to feel sort of like understandably jaded and angry and upset, and like it feels often like there's so little to celebrate. But I think just really think about your own journey of transformation in any way that is personal to you, and just allow yourself to kind of apply it and sort of go along for the ride, and hopefully just have fun and enjoy the beauty of the end, but also the fun that is the roller coaster that gets you there. And yeah, and kind of give that end a shot, and tell me what you think on Letterboxd. No, please don't.
Well, thank you so much for your time and best of luck with the film.
Thank you so much. It was so great to meet you, Kat.